just love it. And as I opened my mouth to speak, a picture came into my head. And I would say this picture lasted for about a split second. And there wasn't even actually an image. The picture was just, and I'm like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like all of a sudden I got an unwanted mental image. And the mental image was just a black. And I just knew from this image that God was up there somewhere, and I was down here. And that black in my head, that was the distance between God and myself. I just had this momentary split second, and I just sort of all of a sudden knew, and all of a sudden, like, a lot of stuff I'd read in the Bible, a lot of stuff I'd grown up hearing at church, all of a sudden made sense. It had never made sense before, and all of a sudden it made sense. It was like, that's what Jesus is about. And so I'd been so excited to, brag about how holy and awesome my relationship with God was doing. And ironically, and I think God does this to us a lot to humble us, I had to end up saying, I haven't been following Jesus like I should. I haven't been living the way that I should. I have to change my life. I have to repent. I don't even know God. Now, this far. Can I explain that to anyone? I didn't tell anyone about that picture because I thought they'd think I was weird. So I had this picture, and it was this radical sort of reorientation of identity. It was this realization that I'm not okay, and that I was a person who needed Jesus. There's a book in the Bible called 1 Peter. It's a letter written by the Apostle Peter, or maybe one of his followers, dictating, but whatever. Or later. Anyway, it's called 1 Peter. It's written by Peter. Maybe. Anyway. But it's holy. It's scripture. It really is. In that letter, he starts the letter in kind of a weird way. He starts it by praising the people who are reading the letter. He's saying, you guys are so great. Your faith has been so strong, and I'm so encouraged by your faith. See, these were people who had, now we don't see it in the letter. This is sort of afterwards. They had this experience of realizing that they needed Jesus. That Jesus Christ was the one who would bridge that gap between them and God. And they realized that. And that realization, this is what's so interesting about it, had changed their identity. Their identity, who they were, how they saw themselves, how Peter saw them, had been changed radically by this confession of faith in Jesus. And it's like, how can words change who I am, right? I continue to be Curtis before I believed in Jesus and after I believed in Jesus, right? But Peterson was talking about them. He talks a lot about identity. In 1 Peter, I have it written down here. If you want to read it, but I have it written down, so you can just listen. In 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10. So he talks a lot about this, but really picks up in 9 and 10. Speaking to them, he says, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's own people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. This identity, right? Peter, who's writing to these people, he's rooting the next 3 chapters of what he's going to say in their identity. Their identity has changed. They are the people of God. And what really proves my point that I'm trying to make is the fact that he talks about that and then moves immediately into what they should be doing. But anyway, let me get back to this story. Okay, so I had this experience, and it was really weird. But then, honestly, I went home, and this was the next day, I think, and I was waiting in the parking lot. My mom went into the grocery store, and I was listening to the radio. I turned it on Cube 93.3, because that's my favorite radio station. because I enjoy rap, and I continue to enjoy rap a lot. So don't get that. Rap is still my hip-hop and all that is still my very favorite form of music. But I was listening to the radio, and a rap song came on. And for the first time ever in my life, I had this feeling. I was like, what is this? It's weird, like. And I was like, oh, I think I feel convicted. And that's a fancy word for guilty. I was like, why do I feel guilty? That's weird. I realized I was like, and it was like, there were like a voice in my head, and it said, what is the song saying? And it's like, I don't know, like, get in the club, do your thing, take that girl home, don't call her tomorrow. Oh, I think that's what's making me feel guilty. It's not that anything's wrong with rap. I want you to get that. Rap is the best. But not all rap songs are the best. Some really suck, like really bad, and some have a terrible message. A terrible, demeaning message. It's demeaning to men, it's demeaning to women. And for the first time ever in my life, I was like, oh, I like see this. It's like I have new eyes. There's a biblical metaphor for you. It was like I had new eyes, though, or new ears, perhaps, or new understanding. I got it. I was like, oh, this is like, I don't think I should listen to this. And that was the first time that began this long chain of this radical reorientation in my life where I had to start living differently because of some thought I'd had like a few days earlier. And that was ultimately the first time that had ever happened. Anyway, Peter, talking to these people, he kind of tells them a similar thing. So he talks about how they're this holy nation, this royal priesthood, this identity he places on them, this very important identity. And then he says to them, dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles, there's the identity, I urge you as foreigners and exiles, and now what follows from identity is something we have to do. I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. Peter is rooting his ethical exhortation, his ethical sort of encouragement, he's rooting what he wants them to do in who they are. Because who we are informs what we do, and vice versa, unfortunately. And that's like the thing that I learned. It's like my identity. I realize I'm a person who needs Jesus, and that's going to have implications in what I do from this day till the end of my life. It was crazy. And so then, the weekend was over, and I went back and switched sides just for, equity's sake. So then I went home, or, I was already home, but I went back to school on Monday and was hanging out with my friends, and I didn't tell them about this picture that I had. None of my friends were Christian in high school. That's something I was actually very proud of, because I knew the Christians. I didn't really care for them. Anyway, so we're hanging out, we're doing whatever. I don't know how long it took until all of a sudden I said, I must have, what is it? I don't know. I am going to make up something, but it would have been something like, I'm walking down the hall and I hit my knee and I was like, oh, fudge! And they're like, hey, Curtis, you have the foulest mouth of anyone I know. What was that? That was weird. And then, a little bit later, I'm like, gosh darn it. I'm like, what is that? That's very bizarre. What's going on, Curtis? What's happened to you? Did you have a brain aneurysm? Because all of a sudden, I stopped swearing like a sailor. All of a sudden, I stopped being okay with, like some of the violent or ultra-sexual videos and TV we used to watch. I stopped being okay with the idea of going to a party and drinking. I stopped being okay with a lot of these things. Now, I never, ever once said to them, you should not do these things. All I said was, hey guys, actually, I'm not going to do this. I know it's weird, but I'm just not going to go to the party I just don't swear anymore, you know? I'm trying to have a more sophisticated vocabulary. And that was not good enough for them. They got really, really hostile. And that was really unexpected. And the worst thing, though, was I really started getting into church then. I really wanted to go to church. I wanted to attend my youth group. I wanted to do all this sort of stuff. And my parents really didn't like that. See, I told you I was raised in a Christian home, but we might call it a nominal Christian home. I like to say I really had more of a secular humanist upbringing. And so they were really afraid that